G'day listeners and viewers right across the country. Welcome to Everything Property by Pivotal Homes, where we connect Australia's best developers, agents, home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts and property advisors to the people of Australia. Today's guest is something that you guys have not heard for in the past, so stay tuned if you are selling anything in Australia, whether it be knives and forks or $1 million properties, or if you're looking to buy anything along the same lines, then this is going to be a must watch because he is one of the brightest young entrepreneurial stars in Australia. He has shared the stage or the interview mic with a range of iconic figures such as Grant Cardone, Jordan Belfort, Mark Boris, Michael Lane, and Harry Singer, just to name a few. He has an abundance of corporate speaking experience after training top-tier firms such as Mercedes-Benz, Australian Skin Clinics, Westpac Private Banking, and National Storage. His company was successful on Network 10's Shark Tank, successfully securing Steve Baxter, Dr. Glenn Richards, and US-based investor Andrew Banks as his investors. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Ryan Tuckwood from ISR Training. How you doing, mate?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, thank you. Nice little intro there.
Yeah, after that, I think we'll pack up when you do the talking from here.
I like the way you said, if you're selling anything from knife and forks, I'm going to show you a different way to sell steak knives.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I always, as a kid, funny enough, I always wanted to sell knives. I thought, like, so many knives and forks in the world, like, surely there's room for more market share, right? If I can just get my own knives and forks out there, everyone will want them. Yeah. Mate, as I mentioned, it's a different topic today we're going to speak about, but I think one that is very, very relevant given, I suppose, the change in dynamic right across the world in how people consume and buy things, but also how people sell things and how they needed to adapt very, very quickly to what, was a changing environment in the world and how people, delivered sales. But before we get into that, I'd love to provide the viewers and listeners some context, because I always feel like that provides a really good foundation as to what's to come in the discussion. So if you don't mind, I'd love to hear about your personal story, obviously coming to Australia, and how the ISR story as well, and your passion that drives that.
Yeah, it's probably been well publicised, but my background is not sales, and I don't know too many people that are born wanting to be a sales professional or salesperson, and if you did say that, you'd probably be chastised by your parents. But my background is actually engineering, so I was a mechanical maintenance engineer for 8 years in the UK. I talk about my quarter-life crisis at the age of 27, where I kind of got to the stage of 5 years in a relationship, owned a couple of properties, Audi TT, Siberian Husky, living the dream, if you were looking on from the outside. But I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't overly motivated and inspired every single day. So there's a bit of a story in between, but I did decide to give it all up and jump on a plane. I didn't just leave my ex-girlfriend there. I did let her know that was happening. Jumped on a plane, moved over to Australia as a backpacker. Bit of a taster through Asia on the way through as well. Spent about 2 months through Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, and just doing what all good backpackers do, and we could dissect that in another interview maybe. And then I wound up in Sydney originally, because that's the only place that exists in Australia when you're English. And then I decided to travel up the coast, went to Cairns, and then travelled down. Finally got to the Gold Coast, which I now call home.
Fell in love with it?
I fell in love with it pretty much instantly. Yeah, I didn't know much of the Goldie. I obviously Surfers Paradise, and it was all by chance. I travelled to Cairns, and the aim was to work my way back down to Sydney and then live, work, and stay in Sydney. And fortuitously, a guy that I played football against, soccer, not even football with, in Leicester, in my hometown in England, he lived on the Gold Coast, lived in Broadbeach. And he saw that I checked in on the Gold Coast, and he was like, "Oh, mate, I live on the Gold Coast. You fancy going for a beer?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know anybody. I'm just travelling for a..." "Yeah, of course." So kind of didn't really know him that well at that point. We went to Fiddler's Green in Surfers, as you do. It was about 2 o'clock in the 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Went to 2 o'clock in the morning.
It did go, that's why it finished. It actually did. Ended up there till about 2 in the morning. And then next day, met him and his missus again. And then he says, "Oh, why don't you come football training on Tuesday night?" So I went training with him at Broadbeach. He was playing for Broadbeach United at the time. Got there and it was full of Brits, and it just felt like home instantly. I've never told this story on podcast. And all of a sudden I'm like, this is pretty cool. I didn't actually know that many people in Sydney. So I'm like, why am I going back there? All of a sudden I've got a guy that's from Leicester. I've just
Football
opened
team.
up 25, 30 lads that are all of like mind. They're all the black sheep that have moved over from the UK. And I decided to stay for another week. Did 2 more football training sessions, lent some boots. Then they had a pre-season game. And one of the guys like, "Well, do you want to play?" And I'm like, now I'm in. And then I got offered a job at Pack Fair working in a clothes store.
Yep.
And that was it. And before I knew it, I'm like, this is actually really cool. So I never left. So there was a short spell working at Pack Fair, doing a bit of retail. My issue was to get a real job. As a backpacker, you can only work for one company for 6 months. So I struggled to find work, and I ended up winding up in a call center. And I'm sure there'll be some listeners that can relate to that environment. It's character building, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly right.
That's what they say when you're hating it. It's good for you, honestly.
Yeah.
This will serve you well in a few years.
Yeah.
And my job was $300 a day. I got paid $400 a week for the pleasure. And I had 90 seconds to find out if somebody had $15,000 to $25,000 in their bank account, which was pretty ruthless when you take an introvert kid out of Leicester who doesn't like rejection, doesn't like confrontation, and then you got people just abusing you all day, every day.
Yeah.
So the story, if I fast forward a little bit, was I did that for roughly 3 months, and I was terrible at it. I genuinely hated it. It wasn't that, it's all right, I'll plod along. I used to get, I don't think I got depression, but I got a level of anxiety around picking up the phone.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to go in. I'd find reasons to send emails, or I'd be in the bathroom like 10 times a day.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I
I remember that as well. You just use any excuse to get out of that next call because you're like, this is just fucked.
is your phone line playing up? Is that just me?
Yeah, exactly.
Anything but pick up the phone, right? But I did it, and I wasn't very good at it. And I wasn't very good at it so much that it was on a whiteboard. There was a sales board, and I was 21st out of 21 people. And the crux of it was I got to the stage where I was actually sleeping in Broadbeach on the corner of Surf Parade and Britannia Avenue, a place called Crystal Gardens, at my 2 mates' house. They were both called James, and I was sleeping on their bathroom floor, and I had like 31 cents in my bank.
Yeah, right.
And this is the guys you met through football?
I met them both at football. Yeah, they both played for Broadbeach. So they
would have been defenders.
They both were.
James, you can do it.
Yeah, James Fletcher is a big centre half, and Jimmy Hamilton's an Irish fullback.
Right.
But they looked after me, and they put me up as best they could in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I slept in the bathroom, and I'm sleeping on a pool floaty. And I talk about crisis points a lot, and anybody that's been trained by me will have heard this, but it was Tuesday morning. It was about 2 a.m. in this windowless box of a room, and all of a sudden my pool floaty just goes, and I just sink to the floor, and I'm laying on these tiles thinking, what am I doing? Like, what? Like, I don't enjoy it. I can't afford to look after my girlfriend Alicia. We couldn't afford to go out for sushi one day. We had no money between the two of us. So the next day I quit. And the day that I quit literally changed the whole trajectory of my life because, as you guys know, the co-founder of ISR Training, Jack, he at the time was my sales manager. And when I quit, he literally called me on it and said, I'm not letting you quit because you haven't tried. And what he meant was I hadn't truly tried to master the art and craft that is sales. And at the time, I definitely had a limiting belief that sales was a skill. I thought you were either born with the gift of the gab, and it was a natural sort of ability, which couldn't be further from the truth, by the way. It is 100% a learned skill. And he said to me, give me 60 days. He goes, for the next 60 days, I want you to fanatically consume as much information as you can around sales, negotiation, body language, emotional intelligence, behavioral science, of which I didn't know any of those words. And he said, if in 60 days you're still 21st on the board, I'll pay for you and Alicia to fly wherever you want. She's from Auckland. You can go to New Zealand, go back to the UK, go wherever you want, but go home or go away with your head held high knowing you gave it a really good go. And then as the story goes, 5 weeks later, not 60 days, I went from 21st to 1st, and my whole mindset around sales just went, wow, holy shit, this is just like engineering. There's a process, there's a formula, there's a system, and if you say the right words in the right order in the right tone, people will respond in a way that you desire, which is a really dangerous and powerful skill to have. But it changed my whole perception. 18 months later, I was running that company, 47 staff, and I did $334,000 in commissions, and I'm like, oh my God, This is like, forget the money. It was impact. I was able to like send money home to my parents. My dad's been sick for a long time with cancer. I was able to support them and pay for their rent. I could never do that. I could never send them money home before. And that's when I realized that there must be more people out there like me that are ready to give up on this industry because they feel that it's a natural skill, not a learned skill. And that's where in 2014, Jack and I broke away and created ISR training, I guess.
And that's, I mean, we spoke about it briefly off air, and a lot of people will come to you and say it doesn't work, or it's a natural ability, but you can sit there and look at them in the eye and say, look, tell that story. I was 21st on the board. This works. I can actually show you. I've been there. I've been down the street whereby you think you're useless and you want to give up and it's not for you, but there's obviously a way out of that.
Yeah, it's I guess that's why it's a passion, right? Like there's I own a hair and beauty salon, as you guys know. Jack and I co-founded a real estate investment company, and whether I should say this on this podcast or not, the real estate side I didn't have the passion as much. Like I think real estate is a fantastic investment, but from a training perspective, that's where I get my buzz. And I think it's because of what you just said there. I'd been through it, and I'd lived, and the amount of people that come to us and say, "Oh, but Ryan, I don't want to be a salesperson. I don't want to be a cheesy salesperson." Good. That's what we don't want to create that either. But you give us, well, it's not even 60 days. You guys have been through the 14-day challenge that we created. Give us 14 days and let us show you a different, more authentic relationship-based approach to communicating, and we'll all accept that we're all in sales. And when we accept that, you can maximize every opportunity and maximize your potential as well.
And ISR, it started off as sales and recruitment, and it's now sort of mainly focused on the sales training side, correct?
Yeah. So we... Jack and I had obviously coached a lot of people internally at the old business, and Jack previously owned businesses before I did. And we'd realized one of the biggest wastes in companies is recruitment. There's a lot of people come in, you spend time training them, you buy them computers, phones, you give them leads, and all of a sudden they quit after 2 weeks.
Oh, we've been there.
You guys know this. And it's painful because you're like, oh, they had it.
It hurts.
She could have made it.
Yeah, that's right.
But they didn't see it. So our ability as a leader is to sell them that you can do this, but we have to manage their expectations. So Jack and I had this idea that, there must be other businesses that are struggling with recruiting staff and retaining staff and getting them to reach their potential. So why don't we create a sales training company that trains job seekers, anybody, even if you've got no sales experience, and then we'll place you into the business. So we were a non-for-profit recruitment agency for 2.5 years doing that, and we placed 2,500 people into work. The cool stat that came out on Shark Tank was that we worked out just before then, we saved the government over $17 million in Centrelink payments by keeping people in work. So it was, all right, I've got Hayden, he's got no sales experience. I'm going to give him to Tom, he's going to put him into work. Mate, how much does it cost? Nothing. Doesn't cost you a single cent. We'll put you into work. Hayden's going to pay us $99 a week out of his wages for the first 10 weeks if we can keep him in there. If we can keep him in for 10 weeks, I know that he's going to be a long-term employee for you. So we give you ongoing online training as well once you've got the job. And what it then did was you'd then go, bloody hell, you took this kid who's got no experience. He's now our number one performer in 10 weeks. Can you train the rest of our company? And that's how we made our money through corporate training.
Yeah, wow.
And then once the Sharks came on board in 2018, they just looked at our model and said, you've got enough validation now to go out as just sales trainers. You don't need, because it was time consuming. We'd be working till 8, 9 o'clock Friday night, Saturday mornings, placing people to go and work on the Monday. When we just didn't need to be doing it. So we made a shift just to being a sole sales training company, which has been one of the best decisions we've ever made.
And you mentioned Shark Tank, and I think even at the time, it was all over social media. It's probably one of the most watched, little snippets of Shark Tank, in what I can ever imagine anyway. Tell us how that's been. Obviously, you've got Steve Baxter, Glenn Richards, and Andrew Banks as investors, but also partners. That's obviously been a massive eye-opener as well. Just lessons every single day. And I think if you go into it for the money, then you're not going to get the lessons. And we never, hopefully this comes across right, but we didn't go into it for the money, which I actually said it in there. I said, Steve, we're not in it for the money, which he said, whoa, don't ever tell an investor you're not here for our money. You're here for our money, so call me on it. But the reality, we wanted their mentorship, we wanted their guidance, and they've been unbelievable. I remember
Glenn Richards said two things to me straight after. They stopped filming. So we're in there for like 2.5 hours and you only see about 12 minutes on TV. We walk around the back and I'm thinking, well, did they just give you some cash? I was pretty naive to the investing world. And he said, Ryan, can I ask you something? I was like, yeah, fire away. He goes, do you think you work hard? I was like, yeah, I think I work really hard. He went, you haven't even started. And I was like, oh shit. And then he said to me, can I tell you what my job is as an investor? I was like, yeah, please do. He said, my job is to challenge your thinking and to raise your line of sight. So he said, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to challenge every decision that you make. So you question yourself and you make the decision from an educated perspective instead of an emotional one because you're the business owner. So I'm going to be non-emotionally attached to this business. And he says, I want to stop you looking down and in and get you looking up and out. And that's exactly what they've done. So if we look at it from a macro scale, they've taken us from a localized Southeast Queensland business that had a few clients in Sydney and Melbourne to being an international brand that coaches across 5 continents within the space of nearly 2 years. So has it worked? Yeah, they've been amazing for us. And as I said to you guys just before we went live, they've now increased their stake in the business as well. So they're more committed than ever before.
Double down.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And I think like you made a good point, even though, you never tell investors it's not about the money, but for us, Tom and I have had those opportunities too where there's, lucrative offers on the board or all these sort of shiny objects to go and chase and it always looks better from the outside. But having that mentorship, which is why we're so happy at Pivotal, is because we're like you are getting mentored by what I think is probably, Michael, the owner, one of the best in the business, and being able to learn firsthand and challenge those decisions. Like, is that the right thing to do? Or should we be doing this? And having that mentor is so important.
Yeah.
And often you go, yeah, it is the right decision. Yeah. And we spoke about this before as well. Sometimes the advice they've given us is just validating the decision we were going to make anyway.
Yeah, correct.
But we just procrastinated or sat on that decision for so long because we haven't been down the road before. Whereas they can go, hey, just so you know, Ryan, we did that 3 years ago or I did that 5 years ago and it didn't work. But I'm not saying it won't work for you. I'm just saying it didn't work because we did it like this. So if you are going to do it, make sure you don't do that aspect.
Make a subtle change pivot or something like that.
And as the company grows, we're constantly looking at structures all the time. But like you said, sometimes we're like, oh, that could be a good idea, but we don't do it.
Yes.
And then when we speak, we finally actually talk up about it. It's like, actually, that's a really good idea.
This podcast
it's like
is
we
a
just
prime
didn't.
example.
Yeah, we just didn't ask a question or get some advice, and then it validated the idea, and it's like, yeah, we should be doing that. Why wouldn't?
Yeah.
I think that's mentors in general, though, right? I've got my public speaking coach, Harry Singer. I think you referenced him at the start. So he works with like the best in the business: Tony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki, Brian Tracy. Like shares the stage with everybody. And he explained mentorship to me really well. He said there's 3 things you got to look for in a mentor. So firstly, you need to find somebody that's walked the exact road that you want to walk. So you need to have a clear vision of where you want to go, and you need to find somebody that's been there before. So we wanted an international business. We wanted a SaaS online training program. So who do we look at? Steve Baxter. Yeah. All right, you've took tech, you've taken it all around the world. Andrew Bank's done exactly the same. He's got online training programs. Then you need, the second part is you need somebody that can actually train you, because it's all well and good that they've actually got the knowledge and they've done it, but there's a lot of leaders out there, they can't impart that knowledge. So they don't know how to educate you in a way that you learn. And then the third part, which is probably the most important one, is they need to be able to teach you with where you're at in your journey, not where they're at in theirs. So there's also a lot of successful people that are 25 years down the road and they're telling you to make decisions on business decisions they made last year, which is 24 years ahead of you. So they need to be able to recoil all the way back to what it was like for them in year 6 and go, okay, well, this is what we did. And that's a tough skill as a mentor. And I think Steve, Andrew and Glenn have all got that ability, which we're very fortunate to have for sure.
And I mentioned there you've worked with some very iconic figures, Grant Cardone, Jordan Belfort, those sort of guys. I mean, lying on the bathroom floor in 2013 or 2014, if you said that to yourself, you would have just been like, mate, you're off your head. There's no way that's going to happen.
I had this conversation with Chris Blackburn's our head of partnerships, and we were driving back last night, and we actually had this conversation. When's this going to be released, by the way, before I start my next sentence?
In about 2 weeks.
I might be cutting it fine. All right, so yesterday, it's not officially signed off, so I might be very careful how I sentence this. But
3 weeks then.
We want to hear it.
So I had a conversation with one of the biggest events companies in the world yesterday. You might have referenced one of their names earlier on. And so we're about to partner with those guys and one of their biggest speakers in the world who does events in front of 20,000 people digitally, and he's got one coming up very soon. So we're driving back with Chris yesterday, and he goes, do you ever think, he said 2 years ago, because it was before Shark Tank, he says, do you ever think 2 years ago that we would have Steve, Andrew and Glenn are doing a summit for us? You sit there talking with Grant Cardone, you do I was MC for Jordan Belfort, 2,000 people in Sydney and Melbourne, and then we're about to partner with XYZ. I was like, no way. Like you can't imagine that. But I guess that comes back to your mentorship, right? We've never made decisions so quickly as a business. Now, this is another thing from Harry. Harry said, don't train to be ready. Don't train when you're ready, train to be ready, right? So I was constantly training when I was ready for an opportunity. So I would go, all right, now I'm ready to expand into Sydney. Now I'm ready to expand overseas. That would never happen. You won't wake up and go, I'm ready to be a dad. Okay, I'm ready for no sleep for the next 2 years. Like nobody ever does that, right? But you can train to be ready when that opportunity arises. And that's what we've started to do now. I'm like understanding lots more about business, empowerment, management, leadership. I study way more on emotional intelligence and behavioral science as opposed to sales. So I understand people better, and I'm a better decision maker. And it's been no coincidence the speed of which our business has grown. So the idea of partnering with who we're, fingers crossed, we're going to partner with, that was just like I'll ask. I'll just reach out and see if there's an opportunity. Exactly right. Whereas before, I would sit on it. I'm a procrastinator.
By the time that comes around, I want to know everything about this person. So if I ever do get the opportunity to meet him, I'll be ready.
The business has got to be this big. We've got to be doing this.
Exactly right. Whereas we haven't been asked those questions, so it didn't actually matter. But I was prepared in the fact that I have a strong elevator pitch. I know what our value proposition is. I've got a rough idea of what a joint venture looks like now. So I knew what I wanted to do. I spent some time talking to the investors and a couple of my other coaches going, okay, well, if I was to approach you with this, what would you ask me? So there's a little bit of prep in that regard, but then just ask and just pick up the phone and have a conversation, because everybody's a human being at the end of the day.
We all have that in common.
And all they can do is say no, and a no is a not right now.
And luckily you did the call center because you set up for it, character building.
And I said that in jest earlier, but I'm super grateful for 300 dials a day and 298 piss-offs a day.
Absolutely. Like there's no rejection that hurts anymore, like no matter what it is, whether it's your missus or whether it's someone on the phone, like no's all good, because I know that the next time I ask, it might be a yes.
I mean, you guys would have experienced this as well. Like in the call center that I was at, it wasn't, we weren't on computers. It was coming in the morning, I'd have 100 leads on a piece of paper. Then lunch break, I'd have another 100, and then late afternoon, I'd have another 100. There's my 300 over the course of the day. And if they told you to piss off, that would then go into a box on the floor, and that's a dead box. If you run out of leads in a week, all of a sudden you go into the dead box and you look at it and you go, Tom, he's a dick. You go, I don't really want to call him. But then they wash the data, and then you get the same name again, like 12 weeks later, and I've closed those people on the fourth call, like 12 months later. So no one's ever dead.
No.
It's just a not right now, or your intro wasn't sharp, your pitch wasn't on point, you didn't get a connection with them, or you just got them on a bad day. And that can happen in any industry.
And that's right. People have their lives, and it takes something, as little as, they got bloody wet by a sprinkler driving, walking to the car or whatever, and there's no way you're going to close them when they've just saturated and sitting in their mood.
I'm a buyer, right? And I appreciate a good sales pitch. And I appreciate you trying to find out about me, wanting to build a relationship, build a connection, although don't mistake rapport being the same for everybody. Rapport is different to different people. But I've got, I use this as an example. We're looking at putting a plant wall in our office. Apparently, it builds great culture. I don't know. It's going to drive revenue through the roof. That's what my team tell me. So, and I got somebody out for a quote, and I'm like, just fire me over the quote, which you should never do, by the way. That's a whole different story. And they sent it over to me. and I want this plant wall. Like I'm ready to invest in this wall. Never followed up with me. The only time they rang, I was literally carrying my son out of the car into the house, and I'm like, mate, I actually can't speak right now. And he never followed up with me.
Yeah, call me back. No.
They've done me a disservice. Now every time I walk in my office, I look out into the call center floor, and there's no plant wall, right? And let me put this into perspective for you. The reason I wanted this wall was to create a creative space for my creative team. But I didn't want them going out of the main, it's an open plan office. I wanted them being on the same floor as the sales guys, because the more people out there, the more energy, motion creates emotion, blah, blah, blah. So every time I walk out there and my creative guys have had to leave that floor because they don't have a little designated area because they want privacy, you're losing productivity for my company. So you're costing money because you didn't dare call me back again. How dare you? Yeah. So it's costing me more money because you didn't have the skills to sell to me. And
I want it still. Please call.
I still do want it.
If you're watching, who wants the plant wall?
Yeah. Oh, no, they know right now.
Yeah,
right.
So did you eventually have to call them?
Yeah, I did.
That's what you had to do? Like, look, I actually want to go ahead with it, but no one's contacted me?
Yeah, but I don't want that guy getting the commission for the sale. Like it's painful because as salespeople, we come to the conclusion for our customer. We have the what ifs. What if they say this? What if they think it's too expensive? What if they're not ready? What do I do? Pick up the phone and find out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just ask.
Just ask. Because that on a macro level is exactly what's happening with some of our JVs and our partnerships. And as you said, the podcast.
Yeah.
How long from making a decision to do it did it take you to actually get started? I bet it wasn't long.
No, we'll hear the next week, I think.
Yeah.
It was just like, let's just start immediately. And
what are we going to ask?
Nothing.
Just have a chat.
See how we go. Mate, let's talk about, a little bit more about the real estate stuff, but let's focus in. Unfortunately, this property and real estate space gets a bad rep due to maybe some of the unsightly or the how can I say, dishonest sort of sales tactics that have been traditionally used, for decades and decades and decades. How is ISO, I suppose, taking what was, sort of maybe some grubby operators in the space and, that work off high pressure, and if you don't buy this today, you're going to miss out and you're going to be destitute for the rest of your life. What's your sort of take on that, and how and why should people be changing the way they're selling people?
I think the easy answer is to say that the market's more educated than ever before, right? We're a sophisticated buyer. Companies like mine will put out video content telling the market how you guys are going to sell to them. Like, we're going to give you the tips that we teach you. We tell the market, right? So we're transparent by nature, and people want that transparency. You go into a restaurant, you see an open plan kitchen. I want to be able to see in. I want to see the chefs cooking for me. I want to know what you guys are doing from start to finish. But I think from a sales perspective, this is why I like working with people in real estate, because the industry is tarnished, and the sales is tarnished, right?
Yeah.
Sales as a whole, but then there's real estate and there's car salespeople that kind of really get it back. And I think the first thing we need to do as an agent or a broker is accept it, and own it. It's a stigma which is rightly delivered, because as you said, there's lots of people that have done it the wrong way. What I like to think about COVID right now is it's going to weed out all of those salespeople, because people aren't making decisions as quickly as they were anymore. Yeah, still making decisions. I'm not saying the market's not buying, because they bloody are. But I think the grubby operators now, the ones that were just high pressurized, they're going to lose out to the people that are genuinely building relationships. So for me, it's about helping this salesperson firstly understand that, hey, there is another way. Like, you don't have to sell like this. I got trained to sell like that. Urgency, scarcity, limited numbers. If you don't do it today, or if you do it today, we'll give you a discount and all of that. Like, you're discounting your price, to make a quick buck right now, increase your chances of buyer's remorse off somebody anyway, and lose out on a lifetime value. Because once you've sold somebody at a discounted rate, you'll never sell them at full rate again. Which is crazy. So from my perspective, I think it's just showing them that there is another way, and going, hey, stop being condescending to your market. They know, trust me, they know what you're doing. Jordan Belfort made a movie about it and gives you all the lines that this sounds like the perfect fit for you. Does it really, when you've not really gone into a deep dive? So what I encourage people to do is stop looking for sales silver bullets and language patterns that are going to get everybody that's closable. It's another line that I hate. and start understanding human behavior. Start understanding the order of which human beings make decisions, how we connect with people. I did a podcast with a guy called Luke Foster from Livin. Do you know?
I know the organisation, yeah.
So Luke's the psychologist there. And he spoke about, as a psychologist, the first thing you got to do is connect with somebody. And I'm a big fan of the acronym TOGA, know when to take or give advice. You got to know when to take or give advice. And you can't tell anybody to buy a property. You can't tell anybody to invest with you until you've earned the right to do so. And the only way you earn the right is to build a genuine connection with them, which we can go into many different training sessions on how we do that. But I think firstly it's accepting it, accept the fact that the stigma is there. Don't try and dismiss it. Bring out the white elephant in the room, and then back up why and how you're going to change it. And we do that by actually connecting with people on a real level. You've seen the iceberg model to selling. So getting under the surface, primary, secondary, tertiary level questions, and getting to an emotional connection, not a logical, this is going to be your retirement sale. That I don't think that quite cuts it anymore.
No. As you said, people are so educated now. Like you cannot, if anything, if you're selling dishonestly, you're obviously a pretty good salesman because the client has so much tools and information to be able to call you out and call your bluff and bullshit. If you're selling something that doesn't do what it's meant to do, there's probably going to be someone on the internet who's bought it before and has written about how it doesn't work.
It's lazy as well, though, right? It's easy to lie.
Yeah, it's very easy.
It's easy to say, "Oh, you got 2 kids. You got 2. Oh, I got 2 kids as well."
No
way. I've got 3 properties in this development. Oh no, the growth rate here, unbelievable. It's really easy to do that. It's lazy to do that, but the industry can eat you up and spit you out very, very quickly. And when the market, and as it keeps educating, it's not going to be a career for you. It's not going to be sustainable. And if it is, you're constantly looking over your shoulder. If you're having to lie and fabricate things, what sort of life is that?
That's right. And you continually, what have I told this person? What have I told that person? And sooner or later, as they say, the truth will set you free.
And Australia's small. I mean, if you're selling in a localized area, say you're just doing Southeast Queensland or just one area of Southeast Queensland, it's incestuous. People know each other, right? And they'll soon find out if you're blagging. So the challenge there is you might have the same stock as everybody else in the same area as everybody else, and your company might have been around for the same amount of time. And we talk a lot about the 300% rule of value. So sell yourself, myself, the company, and the product. If the company and the product are identical to your competitors, the only differentiator is you. So sell you better.
And that's the biggest tool that we have.
Yep.
I personally, I actually really resonate with that. And that's what we tell our guys. Like at the end of the day, people, whilst the product's going to be good, but we got to face the facts that there's 10 to 15, 20 other really good builders out there. Like there's some really good builders doing really good jobs, just like we do. But the difference is that they don't have me, or they don't have Tommy, or they don't have you, Joey. That's the difference. They don't have someone who's going to be able to really. People want to. I always like to have fun with my clients. I pick up the phone and I'm like, "Yoo, how are you, brother?" Like really have that fun because that relationship's so deep now that people are interacting with me and we're doing business together because they genuinely have fun talking. And doing business.
Google did research earlier on. Or late 2019, released early 2020, to suggest that people aren't buying on price anymore. No. They're buying on convenience. So how easy can you make it for me? And experience. And that's not your experience as in length in the industry. That's the experience that they have with you. So we want to have a fun. Some people will argue that they don't want to have fun, but they want to have an enjoyable experience, right? And they want you to make it as easy as possible. But even from a broker's or an introducer's perspective for you guys, I imagine if I was making sales on your behalf, selling your stock, and then fabricating the truth to the buyer, and then they come through to you. You're just putting out my fires on the back end.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How quickly are you going to sack me off eventually? Like,
there'll be, and that happens, mate. And that's I think one of the reasons why we wanted to link in for us personally training, which we're about to do, but also I suppose allow that avenue to introduce yourself to some of our introducers as well, because there's a better way of doing it. Like you don't have to lie or make up something or tell them that'll be fine, even though, and that's tomorrow's problem, because you might not have to deal with it, but we do, and that's why it becomes so frustrating when you're about to hand over the keys or something and the client's like, well, such and such told me that was going to happen. not how it works.
I think they're a lot of the time desperate, and especially if they're an early, a new company or they're only 6 months around, they're just so desperate to get the sales, so they fabricate these sales. But at the end of the day, I sat down with, I sit down with companies a lot of the time during the week to sort of not just provide them stock, but we help educate them. You can do this better. You can have a better success rate, a better fallover rate. You can, deliver a lot more to your clients long term. So when times get tough like COVID, you mentioned before with relationships, they come to us and the clients are ready to buy again in 2 years' time because you looked after them. But now the monkeys get shaken out of the tree because they haven't looked after their clients. Okay, you're not going to survive. And like you said, they don't. In the 4 years, 5 years that I've done it, I think there's like 3 groups that I know from the day that I started.
Wow.
All of them are folded. All of them within 5 years. So it's like, how often are those companies actually around? And a lot of the time they're scared when I just sit down, explain, provide information, do the right sales tactics, tell them the truth, and they're going to be here in 2 years to buy from you again. And they're going to buy from you multiple times.
And don't just reach out when we get to that 2 year mark. Say, hey, just seeing how you're going.
And you actually, genuinely want to build the future with them. So you know them. You get to know them so well. You go into their home, you meet their family, and you're actually giving them multiple properties to build their portfolio over time. You become good friends with them all. Yeah. And that's where you really, and I think where you're saying before, that's where you really care about them. They know you as a person, that you actually care, and you're going to give them the best advice on what you would do.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to get them to come back. And I just find a lot of the companies that we work with, sometimes they just focus on, this is a sale we need to get. But you're going to get more if you just look after them.
Yeah, 100%.
It just doesn't make sense to me when I sit down. I'm like, you're just throwing things, seeing what sticks, but it's going to take you all that time to get that sale anyway. You could do less hours in a day and get more sales if you just look after them.
For sure. And it's strange, right? Because the reality is, people will say to you, I don't have time to nurture my existing clients if I'm trying to bring on board new clients. Like, we hear that a lot. We are in such a fortunate age that you can show character, integrity, intent, morals, values without actually speaking to your customers because of the online ecosystem that we've got. Right now, what you guys are doing, you're creating legacy material where any of your consumers, any of the introducers, any of your clients can actually pick up, jump online and just listen to this at any time, 24/7, 365. Every one of the people that represent you can do the same thing, and they can, like, that's the reason I opened up my my Instagram 2 years ago. So I get people that come on board and they go, I haven't done any training, but I've been watching you. I see what you do with your son on a weekend. I've actually got a Japanese Spitz dog as well. Like, you don't know who's watching. Harry Singer was prime example of this. I engaged Harry for public speaking training, and then we flew him over here in January, just before lockdown. He did a one-day Become a Better Speaker session for us in Brisbane. And I did this big introduction to him on stage. Big deal. I was like, I've been watching him for years, big fan. And he come out, and the first thing he said was, what Ryan doesn't know is that I was watching him for 2 years before I decided to let him be my client.
Right.
Because he picks his clients.
And he told you what when he was on stage?
He told everybody on stage.
Right.
And he said, let's be your first lesson. He goes, you never know who's watching. He goes, I was watching Ryan. And then he rattled off all these things that I'd done over the last few years, the events that I've been to, holidays that I've been to with my family. He said, I saw how you are as a father, how you balance it with work. And he goes, and I thought, that's somebody that I want to help be on stage with the best of the best. And I'm like, holy shit! Like, you actually have no idea who's watching. So
yeah, that's right.
Just if you're an agent right now and you're going, but Ryan, I like to keep my private life private. Yeah. That's fine. But there is an agent out there that is comfortable putting themselves out there, that has the exact same stock as you, and I guarantee the prospect is choosing them.
That's right. Because they're buying people, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%.
They're buying into you personally, not not the product.
If you look at the sharks as another version of what we just spoke about there, with looking after your not over promising. Like, we didn't get any referrals off them for the first few months. They just wanted to see how we kind of worked, and then we got pretty big brand referred to us by Steve. He said, I'll give you one. Let's see how you look after them. We got them great results, and then Glenn gave us one, then Andrew gave us one, and now the floodgates have opened. So every month when we do our shareholders report, the final thing on there is, who do we want? Who do we want to be introduced to? And then they just do an email connection, which makes life a lot easier, right? And when it comes from them. Yeah. But it wasn't like they're just going to keep giving it us, and you guys will be the same. You're not going to keep giving us your stock if we're setting you guys up for more work on the back end. And they were the same, because it's their reputation.
Yeah.
So just look after people.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
It's not hard, is it? And how, like, what are the big differences to sales 10 years ago to sales today? Obviously, we spoke about the education side of things, but is it, I mean, we're sort of in our own bubble, so we only really know what we do in terms of our sales techniques. But is there still a big, do you think, I suppose, the Swish methodology is becoming more and more popular? Obviously it is, but do you think the high pressure sort of stuff is starting to weed out a little bit as it becomes less effective, I suppose?
I like to think it is. I think we're probably a little bit blinkered because we see people in our network and we talk about it all the time, but I'm still out there researching every other course, doing every other course out there on the market. And there's still lots of it that are, okay, where can you build in some scarcity? Where can you, and I get that, like human beings respond to that as long as it's authentic. So I think it's changed digitally. It's changed with our ability to educate the market and put content out there and show people how good you are, not tell them how good you are. So we can get people coming to us and buying on one phone call, but they might have been following us for a few years and consuming. You guys are a prime example of that. We've known each other for what, 2 or 3 years?
Longer than that.
3 years.
3 years since Corewood first started. And you're now only just coming on board as clients. So that's taken 3 years of, hopefully there's been no high pressure sales going on, otherwise this whole thing backfires.
That's right. You haven't stopped calling me.
Elegantly. So it's can you constantly add value to the market? So I like to think that it's changing, but there's definitely still people out there doing some underhand things. But again, it depends how you want to go to bed at night, because these skills are dangerous. They're like this. Jordan Belfort, say what you want about him, and I say fortunate enough to share the stage with him in February, not because of the person that he is, because of the audience that he had. So I get questioned a lot about that. Why would you associate Swish with Jordan Belfort? For me, it was an opportunity to stand in front of 1,000 people 2 days in a row who maybe think that sales can only be done one way. It was an opportunity for us to educate them on Swish. So if I was to kind of categorize it of what sales is like now, I think I don't really like the word holistic, and if you've got a better word, share it with me, because I feel like it's overused like pivot. But it's definitely a more rounded impact of training somebody. So Swish firstly is a method, it's a mindset. So it's selling with integrity, selling honestly. So your job is not to make a sale, your job is to find out if a sale should be made. That's all your job is as a professional. So stop going in with a preconceived idea about what you're going to sell. And then we broke it down into 5 different sections to create world-class sales professionals, not just salespeople. The first S is state of mind. So getting your headspace right first, because it doesn't matter what material you're consuming, doesn't matter who you're sitting with. If you're in the wrong headspace, you're in the wrong mindset, that's no good.
People pick up on that
instantly. Energies, right? We have mirror neurons firing off all the time. The W is winning first impression. We know you've literally got 1.5 seconds face-to-face. You've got 4.5 seconds over the phone. So how are you mastering that winning first impression? The I is identifying all different personality types. So how do you communicate with people from all walks of life? And we do a lot of personality profiling, emotional intelligence. The second S is securing clients for life. So the business end, the closing of a sale. So how do you actually get somebody to go from motivated to buy to becoming a buyer? And the final one, H, which is really being well received on a corporate level, is harnessing a world-class culture. So how can you create that working environment that is conducive to a productive sales force? Plant walls.
Because that's like on that, in terms of a team, like even in the call center environment, there's the culture in sales that someone else's success isn't a good thing. Like if you're not, if you're having, Bob sit beside you and he's beating you in sales, instead of patting him on the back saying, good work, Bob, you're saying, Bob's a bit of a wanker, isn't he?
He's getting all the good leads.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly right. So there's that culture in sales that I've found through my experience that it's a tall poppy syndrome sort of type thing. If someone's doing better than you in sales, you try and, not us, but traditionally people try and bring that person down in whatever way they can.
Instead of going, Bob, can I sit with you for a week?
Can I sit by you? And what are you doing different to what I'm doing?
And it's because it's lazy. It's easier to look for negatives in somebody than to sit with them and learn for a week and understand what they're doing right. And it might be just one little minute change. And that's why, not playing down what we do, but when we go into people's sales processes and I get to sit down and listen to one of your consults, it's really easy to actually dissect and go, do you always say that?
Yeah, yeah.
You always say that word there. You go,
Yeah.
yeah, I've always said that. I go, just move it there. The word's not wrong. Where you said it was wrong. And it's like literally instantaneous. And this is where I get a real kick from sales training, because it can be same day results. On the kind of similar to what you just said there, Hayden, I won't name the company, but there's an organisation in WA that I coach. And I mentor the owner of the company, and he rang me. He said, Ryan, I got a problem. He said, my top sales guy is causing issues for everybody else in the office. And he's the top salesperson by 60%. He brings in 60% of the revenue. There's like 5 staff, and he's like, I don't know what to do.
Rock and a hard place, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I guess most people might have been there, right? It's like having the best footballer in the team, but he's an absolute pain in the arse.
Yeah.
So I said, define pain. What's the issue? He said he's not making he's making 50% less calls, but his closing rate is through the roof. So when he does speak to somebody, he closes them.
The Balotelli.
So 100. That's exactly right. So he's lazy. He doesn't empower other people. When he walks in the room, everyone else's productivity drops. He said, so what shall I do? And I just went, sack him. And he went, really? I was like, sack him. You watch everybody else step up. And they've had their best 2 months as a team since they got rid of this guy. And this guy was obviously completely shocked. And he says, like, I've been trying to get you to pick up your workload. It's all right you can work smart and you can work hard. What we want is both. And I think that's a big lesson that I have, that they can coexist. And if you're a smart, hard worker, then you'll change your whole life and the people around you, but also be humble with it and train the people around you.
How to do it.
I don't know if it's more of a buzz. I definitely get equal a buzz of training somebody else than I do than making my own sales these days. Whereas some people just want to be that the top man or top woman.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the same for us. I mean, I suppose for us having this sales success through our careers, it's it's all well and good what we do, but when you get someone like Joey and he comes from nothing, not nothing, he doesn't come from nothing, but I mean in terms of sales or property experience, and then all of a sudden he's doing better than us. That's what you think, like, that's awesome.
That's your job.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Right.
Our job as leaders is not finish being the leader. Don't be it's not a pyramid scheme within your business. It's about getting people around you that are better than you or can be better than you, and that's how you scale. Like I don't care if, like, right now I'm on a salary, right? And as an organization, we've committed to not taking dividends out of it for 4 or 5 years as a board. So I've got many of my team that are making way more money than I am.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm more than happy with that, because if you continue to do that for the next 4 or 5 years, thank you.
Yeah, they're all successful.
Yeah, they're all successful, and that's when you do that, and that's a lot of research that have come out, is that the one defining factor of unperformance or lack of motivation in a workforce, high sick days, is that people don't feel that they're progressing. So if you're not training your team and helping them become a better version of themselves, not become one of you, but become the better version of themselves, then you're going to have a high turnover of staff as well, which costs you money.
Yeah. I always like the thing where for us, we always jump in with our staff. Oh, if something's wrong, I'll just go and do that part of the job. Sit next to me, I'm going to go do it. And like, oh, are you going to do it? I'm like, yeah, I'll just do the call. I'll do whatever you're struggling with, I'll come with you and we'll do that together. And then they master it as well. It's like not being scared to go, I don't do that anymore.
Yes.
We just go, we'll go do that. We've got no problem. I love going and doing that. Like, even picking up the phone where you said doing calls, we just love. I'll call a random. Let's do a cold call. No problem at all. It's
a tough one with that, because there's a balance of it as well, right? There's a balance of I'll show you or I'll shadow you and give you feedback, and I think we need a nice balance of the two. But people need they need guidance. But what a lot of managers, not leaders, will do is take over. And just do it for you, and they'll go, see, that's how you make a sale.
Come on, mate, wasn't that hard, was it?
Yeah, of course.
Notes?
It's so much easier when I go, hey, mate, listen, I'm the head of sales here at Pivotal, and firstly, I want to apologise for Tom if he's done anything untoward.
Have to do plenty
all right. I've heard the calls. Of course it's easy. Like I jump on, I'm the face of. It's going to be easier for me, and that's a lazy way out as well. Yeah. So that's where Glenn Richards, it always rings home for me. It's like, I'm going to challenge your thinking. So what could you have done better there? Okay, well, let's try that. And sometimes, this is a bit counterintuitive, but sometimes you got to let them make another mistake. What do you think you could have done there? All right, let's do that then. You know it's going to go wrong, but you let them do it, because an action plus an emotion creates a lasting memory. So when they take that action and then it invokes the emotion of frustration or embarrassment or anger, whatever it may be, they'll never forget it.
Yeah. You showed them this is what happened. No worries.
Brilliant.
They then never forget.
Yeah. Okay. So we tried your way, but I gave you the chance. I empowered you to make a decision. And I think that's really important. And that's been good for us to scale at pace, is that my team, we've got our values as a business: transparency, integrity, and inspiration. You don't need to come and knock on my door to make a decision. Look at the values on the wall and go, hey, is it transparent? Does it have high levels of integrity? And is it going to inspire somebody to become the best version of themselves? If so, do it.
Do it.
And that's just like the golden thread through the whole company, and it makes it really easy. Then it stops all the, have you got 2 minutes? Have you got 2 minutes? Which is not a very good use of my time.
Yeah. Mate, let's talk about from a potential client's perspective, someone who may be going through open homes this weekend or going through display homes or whatever. What are some of the things, I mean, because you've trained, is it over 5,000?
6 now, we just tipped over 6 before the
over
financial year.
6,000 people. So with that comes...
Not counting.
That's right. With that comes, I suppose, almost a database of what you've seen in terms of what they do wrong before coming with you.
Yeah.
So as a prospective client walking into a display home or walking into an open home this weekend, looking to buy their first home or an investment property or something like that, what should they be on the lookout for when trying to I suppose, align themselves with someone who does have integrity and is going to be honest? Are there little things, I suppose, character traits? Yeah, the reverse. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Are there things that they should potentially be looking out for as warning signs?
Yeah, I guess I could reverse a phrase that Andrew Banks gave us. That Andrew says that your job as a salesperson is to be interested, not interesting. So if you are going to an open home, you're looking at potential property this weekend, and you've got somebody that's telling you more about themselves than asking you about you, that's an initial red flag.
Yeah.
If you hear the bog standard, what did you think?
Yeah.
Like that one infuriates me. I don't know. Like I'm still walking around. Instead of what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Like, I know they're having a look around the home right now, but what are you looking? I care about you, so I'm interested in you. What are you looking for? So there might be like green flags that you're looking for as well as the red flags.
Yeah.
But so are they more interested in telling you about them? Are they more interested about telling you about the features as opposed to the benefits? So we talk a lot about people buying emotion, justifying logic. So if they start talking about why something is great based around where it was made, the materials, the time for delivery, whatever it is, they're not interested in you. They're selling a product. They're not selling a solution.
Yep.
The only way we can sell a solution is if we find out what people are looking for. If they do start dropping in any sort of undue urgency, I know in the industry there is urgency on certain developments. Of course there is.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of developments.
Yeah.
Right? If anybody says to you, well, listen, look, if you want to get it, you need to get in quick. If they say something like that to you on the first time they've ever met you, before truly understanding what you're looking for, then they're probably just going down the bog standard sales route. And that if they're doing that literally within the first few minutes, then you can only imagine how the corresponding interactions are going to go.
Yeah.
So be very, very cautious of people that are doing that. You know if you're being treated like a number.
Yeah.
If you're just being hoarded through, and it's also hard for the agent. Like I get at open homes, it's really, really tough to have a meaningful conversation in a short amount of time. But you can ask the question. You can say things such as, naturally, with the influx of people looking at this property right now, I'm going to find it really hard to find out what everybody's looking for. But guys, as you're walking around, I am going to come up to you individually and say, hey, give me 3 to 5 things that you're really looking for. And then I can go away and do some research and maybe introduce you to them further down the line. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So you actually frame the fact that I'm going to walk around during this open home and I'm going to introduce myself and ask you, what are you looking for? Now you've also given them time to think about what are those 3 to 5 things. And then if those 3 to 5 things happen to be in that house they're looking at right now, bingo. If not, go away, do your job and find them something that suits.
Yeah, very, very powerful stuff. And so ISR, you've got coaching corporate companies with multiple hundreds of staff, like we mentioned, Mercedes-Benz and all that sort of stuff. And you're also doing individual sales training as well through your online program.
Yeah.
That's a relatively new, the 14-day Swish challenge we touched about briefly, a relatively new concept and has gone ballistic during COVID. How's the uptake of that been?
Yeah, so the online training, the Swish Academy, we call it. So it's an on-demand training program, almost a Netflix for sales and communication training. But the 14-day challenge is separate to that, but we also now placed it in that in the academy. But it was born out of the COVID 14-day isolation, and it was a bit jokey to be honest at the start. It was the start of April. We were all working from home. And it was like, imagine if you got COVID and you had to isolate. You couldn't go anywhere. You had to stay in your house. And we were having a creative meeting, and I said to my marketing manager, Lauren, I was like, I'm going to create an isolation course. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know. I'll just pull like 14 modules, and 14 videos, and I'll give them a challenge to do at the end of it. She was like, well, when do you want to release that? And I opened up my calendar, and I went, let's do it on the 20th. And I think it was like, it might have been the 6th of April, something like this from memory. So it was like 14 days away. She was like, what, film it and everything? And I'm like, yeah, why not? I'm at home. A lot of our physical training, a lot of my speaking events had postponed till later on in the year. So I had time. So I set the camera up, put a whiteboard up, and put together this 14-day challenge, which we did as a beta test. We wanted 50 people in there. We ended up getting 700 people register. Wow. And then all I knew from a filming perspective was I needed to stay 2 days ahead of everybody, because it was in there. I went live in there as well most days. So it was in a Facebook group. So I thought, if I just stay 2 or 3 days ahead of everybody with filming, we'll be fine. It was Monday the 20th of April that it was released. I'd filmed the first 3 days. And on that night, so the Monday night, my house got broken into. My car got stolen. With my wallet and everything. So they broke in, stole my keys, took my car. So the next 2 days I spent on the phone to insurance companies, forensics, police, and now I'm like, oh my God, I've got like, in the end we had...
And you had 700 people in here.
We had 519 actually went in the end.
So it's not one of those things like, oh, my car got broken into, I can't do it anymore. You just got to find it.
I had to do it. And I'm like, I've and this is actually a great lesson, by the way. And it coincides... with Jack and I, the first boot camp we ever did. We had 14 paying customers sitting in a reception, and I was still writing the PowerPoint as they were ready to go on the morning. So then I had to keep filming late until the night. And for some people that might have done that 14-day challenge we just spoke about before, some of the videos go a little bit darker. I'm not a videographer. But it went crazy. It created a tremendous funnel for us of, again, showing people how good we are, not telling them how good we are. So just a bit of a taster to online training and the benefits of digital training, repetition, accountability, rewind, download documents, watch the video over and over again. And we had people that the best we got is a 12x return on their sales, 12 times their sales in 14 days.
Wow, that's huge.
And I think we were all surprised. Like, to be honest, we didn't expect the uptake that it had.
I think as consumers, we were surprised too, because normally if it's free or if it's at a low price, there's normally not a lot of value in it. Normally it's one of those things where it's like when you go to those free seminars and then they just try and sell you into the next seminar. There's not normally a lot of actual good info. It's normally just touching on a little bit and then they don't actually give you the carrot.
It's a lesson for salespeople in general in 2020, right? It's that there's a shock element to that, and we talk a lot that there's 6 ways to build rapport on a professional corporate level. The second one is breaking the mold, and I think we break the mold at our events by doing that. That we're not just this is what you need to do. We give you the hows as well, and that program, more than anything we've ever created, kind of encompassed that we're going to give you lots of practicals, and if at the end of it you feel that you've progressed personally and professionally, because it's not just sales training, then we do have other programs that you can look at, but there will still never be a high-pressure sale to it. But we've now earned the right to introduce our secondary or tertiary products, and that's the key. We earned it. So if I said to you, hey, look, if I was going to work with you for 14 days, and then at the end of the 14th day, can I have 5 minutes to talk to you about some of the other programs? If you take great value from it, nobody says no to it. And then we took it a step further and we put a money back guarantee on it as well. By the time we got to the second one, it's $97. And we said, if you genuinely, hand on heart, you can look me in the eyes and say that wasn't worth $97, I'll give you your money back. And we've had nearly 1,000 go through now and not one. And we know it. I won't say it won't happen. It probably will. You're always going to get one person.
That's right.
And if they do, they're never going to be a client for us anyway, so that's fine.
And as you're going through the 14 days, you're giving them tools on each day to start implementing that day in their sales. And that's why it was like people were getting results halfway through. It's like they're already using this.
Yeah.
And they're getting results before it's even finished. So it's like you're saying, you're giving them tools. Normally, instead of, like a lot of places, you just quickly talk about things. You broke down the tools. You can implement this today. And perfect. That's what they want.
And as an agent, like even in real estate, you got to really kind of think outside the box and go, what can I give my prospect today that is going to educate them and move them forward on their journey, whether it's to invest in a property through you guys or not? How can I be remembered as the one that I did help you? Like regardless, I'm just going to selflessly give you something right now. Reciprocity, one of the biggest tools of influence out there, is can I give selflessly to you? And then, do you know what? If you do decide to invest in property sometime in the future, you'll remember the one that helped you, especially through COVID, right? There's the people the amount of touch points we've had through COVID when people are doing it genuinely tough has gone 10x. And that was some advice from Andrew Banks. As soon as COVID hit, be more recent, more frequent with your existing customers and all prospects than ever before. Put out more content than ever before. And that was probably another reason for the push of the 14-day challenge.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. Look, we're out of time, but absolutely loved having you on. I think both from our introducers and our partners, there's some really good value there to be had, but also some really good points for potential clients and consumers who are out there buying property or buying anything to look out for. Now, before we go, how do people get in contact with your organisation if they want to do some sales training?
The company's ISR Training, so you can jump on to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can email admin@isrtraining.com.au, or you can get me personally on LinkedIn professionally, Instagram for baby photos, and Facebook. And we're everywhere. If you just Google ISR Training, you'll find us pretty damn quick.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Ryan Tuckwood, thank you so much for joining us, mate. It's been a real pleasure to chat and talk everything property.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, mate.
Cheers.
See ya.
Thanks, buddy.